morning. This is the Focus on Parliament show on Civic Space TV, brought to you by the Center for Constitutional Governance. I am Kwagala, your host. On this edition of Focus on Parliament, we discuss the ongoing cabinet retreat happening at Kyankwanzi, by especially focusing on the expectations of the Ugandan public. Also on the program, we canvass what could be the thoughts of the citizens regarding the subject of the parliamentary session. Viewers, once again, you're most welcome to this program. I now have the pleasure and the honor to introduce to you my guests to help us understand today's topic. From my immediate left is the gentleman from UPC, but also a senior citizen, Mr. Othieno Joseph. Joseph, you're most welcome to the program. Say hello to the viewers.
It's a pleasure to be here, and yes, I've not been here for some time, but it's a delight being here at a time when we're discussing the mess at the heart of Parliament and the mess at the heart of the Executive.
Thank you, Joseph, for joining us. And of course, from our public watchdog in Parliament, the Uganda Parliamentary Press Association, is Mr. Tusiime. Apollo, you're most welcome to the program. Say hello to the viewers.
Hello, good morning, our viewers, and I'm pleased to be part of the civic space debates. Greetings from Parliamentary Press, but I always want to run this disclaimer that Uganda Parliamentary Press Association is a group of journalists who are created to cover Parliament, which I lead, and we are not employees of Parliament. We are picked from private media houses to cover, to relay what happens in Parliament to the public. I'm pleased to be part of this discussion.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's a pleasure. Let me start with you, Joseph. Reports emerging from the cabinet retreat in Kyankwanzi indicate that the talk of corruption once again is dominating the conversations. This time round, according to a headline published by the Daily Monitor, a supposedly furious president emphasizing that the courts of law should deny bail to members of his government who have been implicated in corruption-related scandals. Of course, this coming on the heels of a renewed impetus and charge to stamp corruption out of government. What are your thoughts on this?
First of all, the event in Kyankwanzi is not necessarily cabinet retreat. Number two, if it was a cabinet retreat, it should possibly have gone to Rock Hotel Tororo, which we built for the citizens but has been taken privately. Or it should have gone to, say, White Horse Inn in Kabale, which is a fantastic hotel that I don't know who owns those spaces these days. Really a public, possibly, ideally a public space. Or perhaps they could have taken it to maybe Queen Elizabeth Park or something like that, to give it a local content. But in any case, Kyankwanzi is the property of the people of this country, except allegedly supposed to be a leadership institute, but has become turned into a military thing and is controlled by the military. And so to call it, therefore, a leadership institute, I don't get it. The UPC government founded Institute for Public Administration, and somebody in NRA decided to change it to give it some big name, Uganda Management Institute, so just down the road on Chinja Road. Perhaps, therefore, if the NRA cabinet wanted to meet, they could have taken a retreat there, because these guys need huge amount of lessons to learn. But that lesson is not military.
On public management?
Generally, if it's about a cabinet, because their job is to manage the affairs of the state on behalf of the citizens of this country. And so, ideally, yes, it would be something like that. But to take them to Kyankwanzi, where people don themselves in military attire, is to scare you Ugandans that stop talking about the incompetence of this regime and the theft of public money from where the number one suspect really is State House. So number two, as I understand it, there are other agencies there, including people from NRA Secretariat in that place. And so it's not necessarily cabinet. And number three, people have been wondering, when is UPC going to have its leadership team or membership retreat in Chankwanzi? It's a public institution. So if it's not, then Chankwanzi remains one of the stolen parts of Uganda by NRA, which NRA is using to continue to entrench itself in power. Number four, unfortunately, if you're asking me what these guys are all about there, I think there is a panic in Mr. Museveni and his regime, seeing what's happening in Kenya, seeing that young Kenyans, and you're a young guy, the entirety of your backroom guys are young people, they're all very fantastic people, but unfortunately you guys are being held hostage by this NRA regime. The young people in Kenya, predominantly everybody in Kenya, most people in Kenya, but young people in Kenya, said simply enough is enough. We must begin to do things differently. I know Mr. Museveni knows that we have relatives in Kenya and have friends in Kenya. Kenya is a neighboring country, and Kenya is an East African country. And thanks to social media, and more modern communication these days, you can't hold back onto what's happening in the neighboring country. So these guys have gone there, one, to regroup, I believe, but number two, to give you guys an impression that they care. So now, your other point, which is about this thing that the media reports that Museveni says now, hakuna mchezo, corruption, no bail. I hope the no bail means that next time we take the entire State House to Luzira, there will be no bail for them. Because this thing starts from State House. Can you imagine, Mr. Museveni, we are talking about struggling population, and Mr. Museveni appoints allegedly another Kwango, another Westage, some funny guy, allegedly, who is reported to have been prosecuted and held
Former convict.
for a convict, in fact, to head an anti-corruption organization. What junk of a joke is that? And I do not know what the position of Parliament is on these matters, but I think Ugandans, you are a laughing stock on the continent. I talk to many Africans, by the way, friends across this continent, but some Africans think we've been cast. But I reject that because I'm not cast, and I know most of us are not. But we've just been taunted and pushed in a particular corner. So I put it in that context. But then, of course, then you say that no bail to corrupt guys, according to Mr. Museveni.
In his government.
In his regime. But also, we know how political prisoners, have been denied bail by this very same regime. It's a contradiction. But most importantly, Mr. Museveni's cabinet has got 22 at least clear thieves, suspects, but clear thieves of Mabati. This guy stole from the poorest of the poor Ugandans from Karamoja, and they're seated in his cabinet. So Mr. Museveni does not need to involve the police. He does not need to waste the time of detectives. He does not need to waste the time of my beautiful sister, Nobeti Kamia. He does not need to create a new agency. He just needs to sack these guys like Ruto has sacked his team, So a thief steals Mabati, including your deputy finance, because Museveni is the #1 accounting finance officer for this country. So Museveni is finance minister, who holds our money, our trillions of money. Some guy from that end of Bunyoro, And this guy finds Mabati, travels from Karamoja by air from Moroto, and then find themselves in the living room. And this guy still is controlling and is part of those guys down there. And Museveni has not sacked them. And Museveni is telling to deviate attention from the public of the country that, look, no bail. No, Kasanja should be in. Museveni's deputy is mentioned, should be in. My good sister, the Speaker of Parliament is mentioned, she should be in. Museveni's chief whip, whoever they whip, young should be in. So all these guys should be in, meaning the entirety of Museveni's cabinet should be in Luzira. So point is, it's not about being in Chankwanzi. These guys are hiding in Chankwanzi, and they're hiding at the expense of people's money. These guys need to come into the streets of Kampala. We need to whip them chiboko. We need to whip them chiboko for being bad boys and girls thieving our money, and we need to hold them to account. That is what this, so these guys need to be in the streets of Kampala, not in Chankwanzi. So this debating them in terms of, oh, he's now playing tough. No, it is a diversion. But let me tell you one quick thing. Museveni's government's regime's thievery did not start today. It started when they landed. In 1987, I was a young student in Makere, so I'm an old man. Yeah? Museveni went through what you call currency conversion. I know for you, you're not born. So to you, it's almost like discussing the Bible, what Jesus did in those days. But I can tell you, Museveni went through a currency conversion in which 1,000 beautiful Ugandan shilling, and it was good money, by the way, he chopped off 20 and cut off 30%.
700.
And so from 1,000 Uganda shilling that time, the Ugandan remained with 7 shillings. 30% of that money has never been seen, and the 7 has never counted for it. That's when it started. So start from there. Then you go to junk helicopters. Then you go to Temangalo. Then you go to this thing that involved his other friend Jim Muhezi, killing our people through HIV/AIDS and malaria. Recently NSSF. You can go on and on and on, and Commonwealth thing. And finally, the one I wanted to bring. Then recently, Parliament, this assembly, they try to be courageous enough to review and simply say, no, we want to rejiggle your budgetary proposal. Absolutely their responsibility. I'm sure you had this conversation. It's absolutely part of their remit. Museveni says no. Simply because certain legislators, who are his people anyway, had been found wanting and had stolen, which is true, together with his officials, who had also stolen, over his watch. He said, he thinks because the public is now going to have a very bad opinion of Parliament, it's a good opportunity for me to get some money for my other thieves in Roko, like some other thieves in Donze, like other thieves in some of the other construction. So Museveni, 750 billion Uganda shillings, young man, it's a huge amount of money, that Museveni picks, plays around with the National Assembly. And the legislators saying that, look, you guys, this money we could rejiggle it, some of it could go to, and they said, put some, my friend from the media and from who's reporting Parliament will have all this information. Money is that, okay, let this one go to health, let this one go to merely ambulances. Museveni refused. So Museveni should be not in Chankwanzi, but Museveni should be answering to the citizens of Uganda what his beautiful love relationship is with Roko, what his beautiful love relationship is with Pineti, what his beautiful love relationship with Donze, and particularly what then his beautiful considered love relationship with the National Assembly of Uganda called Parliament. If that's not the case, they work in Chankwanzi. Remember, every penny being spent in Chankwanzi is your money.
Apollo, let me come to you. The government has justified the meeting in Chankwanzi as an opportunity to take stock of their achievements in this electoral term, post-2026, 2021, even as we head into 2026. So to them it is an opportunity to review the progress that they have been able to register. But I want to ask the question from your point of view as a citizen. Are you satisfied with the nature of progress that the government has been able to register during this period, especially now that the president himself acknowledges that there is rampant and runaway corruption in government, which has permeated each and every level, each and every fiber of the Ugandan society? Of course, it is dominating discussions at the retreat, and the president is vowing to, stamp out this vice from his government. What are your expectations as a citizen?
I can't be satisfied with the progress because I'm a victim of corruption and the bad governance. I think, let me answer that one and I get it out of the way before I proceed. But I want to agree with the Honorable Ochieno that what is happening in Kenya is something that any leader, any sane leader cannot ignore. We received the reports, I think, yesterday that the former Nigerian president, Olusegun Obasanjo, was telling the Tinubu government and the people in government that you people, you should not ignore the plight of the young people in this country. I am sure what is happening in Kenya and what has been happening for the last 3-4 weeks has sent reverberations across the continent and beyond. So if Honorable Ochieno talks about the Kenyan issue having a hand in the retreat that is going on in Chankwanzi, he has a very strong point. If you are President Museveni and you have another government across the border which is struggling, where a leader is making every concession to still hold on to power, then you know that it can happen even in your country. And I think it would be ideally a good thing for leaders in a government to have a retreat and do some evaluation on their progress. But again, the question remains on what happens afterwards. Because like everyone knows, the issue is corruption. And like you said, corruption has permeated every fiber of every fabric of governance in this country. So I can again refer to the article I wrote some months ago about what I think President Museveni is doing. He wants to ride on the corruption card to pick some political support for some time, which can possibly push him through 2026. Yes. So I think that is surely manifesting in what he's doing. He has now made corruption his rallying point, his main issue. But we know that he cannot do much about corruption that is happening in this country, because corruption holds a bigger chunk of the foundation of his leadership. So I think the people who are in Chankwanzi are telling themselves that possibly they should go slow on stealing and plundering this country. But the end point is that they will come back. Then they will go back to their normal ways, and nothing much will change. So it is good. It will be good if something good comes out of Chankwanzi. But again, it is something that we can wait to see whether it happens or not. But like I said, you cannot ignore what is happening in Kenya. The young people who are on streets and who have achieved through their civil movements, you can if you are President Museveni and his group, you have to take a step back and think of doing something right for some time. If you continue to ignore what is happening, I have said it before here, I'm totally confident that it can even happen here and not and very soon. Because the pinch, the troubles, the problems the young people in Kenya are going through right now are almost the same problems the young people in Uganda are going through. Most of them are learned but unemployed. And if you look at the cost of education in this country, you look at how much the parents pay for these young people through the education system, then you look at the opportunities available and how these opportunities are being shared, the inequalities that are in the sharing of the national resources, you truly agree that it's just a matter of time. People will, at one point, like my colleague one time here said, at time T, people will decide to also take the Kenya way. But again, something he said about Parliament. I think there is something he talked about Parliament. I think it will come in our next topic, okay, as we talk about the recess.
So, Joseph, going back to Chankwanzi, what is your forecast past this retreat? Should we expect a looming cabinet reshuffle to reflect the Kenyan situation?
I don't know, and I don't know. Chankwanzi is, as I said, in his dice, really. And there is really nothing major, meaning that even if there's a cabinet reshuffle, I have said this, and I say it again to the youngsters of this country. If after 40 years, what you see today, wherever you are watching from, is what you see, it's extremely unlikely that over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, NRA can deliver anything else for you. So if you can't deliver an authoritarian repressive regime, without opposition for 20 years, for us, we had to fight back. We had to fight back. So we, to be allowed to reoperate just a decade or so ago. So for 20 years, there was a continuous NRA thing. So meaning Museveni has had every opportunity to do anything and everything he could possibly do. So after 40 years is the time the Jews spent in exile in Egypt. And that was considered a hugely long time. Now, that is a landmark biblical time. It's a long period of time. I am going to say, but in a slightly different segment, that British elections took place in Britain last week. And the youngest member of parliament there is 22. So it is actually possible that there is a person who was born on January 25th, 1986, when Museveni came upon 25th, but he just didn't want to share the date with his friend Idi Amin, January 26th, 1986, that person may have given birth, at 18, and now they have somebody older than the British member of parliament who just joined. That's such a long time. So I don't know what magic can come from Chankwanzi, but trust me, there is going to be nothing majorly. The return from Chankwanzi is a face mask that we're different, we've sort of changed. Instead of doing what Ruto did under pressure, fellow Kenyans, after Ruto, I don't know who gave him initial advice that day when our people unacceptably died in Kenya. Those are my brothers and sisters and my children, unacceptably died in Kenya. No African should die as a result of an African gun for which they're going to pay for their taxes at any time anymore. It should not be acceptable. Not here in Uganda. I know some died here under NRA, and people say some died before, but no African should die. So these Africans die in Kenya. In that evening, whoever advises Ruto, and I know he has many advisors in this region, he goes and tells them, criminals were demonstrating. But the following day, civility, common sense, and I also know the phone calls, and I know some of the people who made those phone calls, certainly not from here. I know some sensible Kenyans, others who made phone calls. Ruto came out and said, look, guys, fellow citizens, I have heard you. Museveni is not going to do that. Certainly not as yet. But maybe because I know he follows us, maybe he might take that line because it's a very nice line, Mr. Museveni. And I know some of you, the people who advise you, they eat a lot of our money for nothing. They can give you free advice, Mr. Museveni. So just come from Chenko and say, fellow citizens, I have heard you. We've heard you. We've come from Chenko and now we've changed from Saul to Paul. We're going to do things different. You'll see, you'll have a possibility of an opinion rise. But except that opinion rise will not turn around. Your time is there because 40 years is enough anyway. So you may survive in the short run, but not going to be long term. So no, but that said, you're right, it is possible. He could do a cabinet reshuffle. Because you know what? This guy in his game, in his dubious game of ruling this country, Mr. Museveni is very smart. So he very quickly turned around this corruption thing into his baby. And now he's presenting himself not only as the chief victim, but the chief of victims, chief spokesperson for victims. But what Museveni forgets is that he's actually the chief executive officer of this country. The failure of cabinet, the failure of ministers, his appointees, the failure of his RDCs, I don't know what jobs they do, by the way, because those are posts that UPC will crack, RDCs. The failure of all these other heads of departments, heads of Kwangos from UNRWA, whatever, his failures because they're his appointees and this regime. When it's convenient, every other time they say, there was somebody at a roadblock somewhere in Semuto, and this UNLA guy picked money. But these guys, this other thing was ever happened, whatever. And then there was an NRA Museveni suspect somewhere, on Masaka Road, and then maybe UNLA guys picked them somewhere and possibly beat them, which is wrong, those about it. So Museveni is very convenient for Museveni. So no, Museveni takes absolute responsibility, but in part because he's been in power for such a long time. But number two, as I said, I listed down some of the key corruption scandals, which are unprecedented in this country. What is a very happy man in heaven? Corruption is even Idi Amin, the bad man that Museveni and I were at one time, at least Museveni, you and I have been on the same place, same side. We fought Idi Amin together. You know what I'm saying? So even Idi Amin, there's no way in which you can match Idi Amin's record with Museveni. So that's how terrible this regime is on public services and on corruption. Now, one thing that Mr. Museveni did was that day that my beautiful sister-in-law, Betty Kamia, comes. And with Museveni there, said, Mr. President, we need to do lifestyle audit. You remember that? And the guy comes to my poor sister, Mulamu, said, no, younger ready, leave that. Don't go there, go slow. So the Museveni who said go slow on these thieves, because they steal from Ochieno, they steal from Karamojong, they steal from Muswata, they steal from Misinjiro, they steal from Roboa, but they go ahead and invest. And some of these thieves boast in Kampala. You meet them. Some of they boast, they look like heaven. And they know this is our money, we know it. Then they build some of these malls around Kampala. Oh yeah, it's okay, they're saving them here, since they're not spending it in Tabora. Surely? The same Museveni that will come from Chankwas and the thing's going to present something else. No, it's not going to be different. What we can say is, let's try and wait and see how he tries to manipulate you guys again. Because Ugandans have become now many experts at being manipulated by Museveni. That's really all I can say. But it's extremely sad. No, let Museveni return from Chankwanzi and Ugandans begin afresh, holding him to account on the budget deficit, on excess taxes, on bad spends, on our terrible roads, on why he's given money to Rocco. Oh, Museveni, you're lucky. I'm not in Uganda House yet. That Loboa thing, who Penete is to him, the Donze kind of stuff, yeah? The Atiak Sugar, who owns Atiak Sugar? Who is this funny person owning Atiak Sugar? Why isn't it to Musoga? Who owns Atiak Sugar? Who? Those are the things we need to hold this guy to account for. and it should not be deviated. And then, as I said, Ugandans need to remember, it is their money. But finally, for me, I can have a conversation and go to Nagongera. Because me, I'm just like a musician. I just play on and play. But you guys, whether you like it,
whether musician who's a Ugandan, yes,
whether you like it or not, in the next 30 years, it will be absolutely relevant, particularly to you young Ugandans. So the money being stolen is your money. And unfortunately, sadly, most of it is borrowed money and borrowed with interest. The other day, 2 days ago, I was having a conversation on the international television network, and we were discussing African economies. And as I was preparing myself for this program and I was doing research, I found this extraordinary amount of money. You look at the Kenyan case, maybe saving Mr. Museveni in a particular context, that Kenya owes 80 billion US dollars. And Ruto has borrowed 20 billion since his arrival. And I said, how do you do that? And then you come back and say, the poorest of the poor in Kamwatch are the ones who should pay for your rot and your spend. Chankwanzi, what it must do is for Mr. Museveni to come back and say, one, First Lady's office budget, knocked off. My so-called presidential advisors, whom I never see, some of whom I don't know, in the actual sons of some thieves who gave me Malapi in Luweru, whatever, chop by 80%. Many of these other Kwangos reduced and killed. The other agency that you put a thief, the other day to chase a thief, that you've heard from the Ochienos, they've said, no, you need to remove that guy and ask him to go for rehabilitation, maybe in Lozira or wherever it has got to go, to reform himself. Oh, let him take a retreat somewhere to a monk, so that he goes and he asks for forgiveness, rather than heading an anti-corruption organization. So if you do that, we'll begin to say that, well, also, that no minister must have more than one nice car. If he's going to have a convoy, let him have an extra pickup. Just think about it. No member of parliament must have a police truck following them. I know some of these people say that these people ask for these things and they get paid for. But you know what they're saying? These people don't pay for training police officers. We recruit and train police officers to do law enforcement rather than escorting some people, some of whom are actually thieves. In the last Robote government, the Speaker of Parliament, Francis Butagira, good enough, he's still very smart and handsome and calm, in town, Butagira, I regard him very highly, Francis Butagira had one Mercedes-Benz car, one driver, and one escort, a police officer. Speaker of the last democratic parliament in this country. Okay? The former government side chief whip, who happened to be my former member of parliament, was in the one ward, one driver, one escort. The bodyguard, the police officers, the guy is still alive somewhere in Tororo. The other day I bumped on him as I was going to a funeral to my friend Tango Do, is a relative. So meaning, therefore, that time, Museveni and others were busy breaking people's necks in Luweru. There was banditry, the Musevenis were throwing bombs here in Kampala. Yeah? Prime Minister was driving one Mercedes-Benz, slightly much elevated, different quality Benz, Prime Minister and Vice President, and the President. The rest had one car, one driver, one bodyguard, police officer. See how we are wasting public resources. Chankwanzi. Guys, get this from me seriously. The only other person who had an extra pickup of police escorts was John Lawrence Kirunda. One Mercedes-Benz, but one police truck of police officers. Kirunda took a police escort.
What was his portfolio in government?
He was a Minister of Internal Affairs and Secretary General of UPC. But the Musevenis had tried his life here. This Musevenis, you talk about terrorism, the Musevenis tried his life where? In his office at Crescent Towers. So once he survived a grenade attack, he had his his security enhanced. That was all. So Mr. Museveni, you claim you're revolutionaries. You claim we are people's thing. You claim you're a mass party. You claim you're cleaner than the Pope. Now come back from Chankwanzi, travel in one Mercedes-Benz car, or whatever it is, or this day is Land Cruiser, one like this, and this day is even more tinted, you know, and so save our money. Save our money and let those police officers stop. Some of them playing mean, and some of them came from the center, very decent people. No, let those guys go to do law enforcement, to begin work doing the job that they're trained for: detection of crime and prevention of crime. And let our military be in Chankwanzi and learn to defend ourselves against Rwanda, should we annoy Mr. Kagame, and against Congo, which I know will not happen because, we are very decent people. We have nothing to do in Rwanda, we have nothing to do in Congo, and have nothing to do in South Sudan.
Apollo, do the issues that Mr. Othieno here raises concern you? Issues to do with budgetary corruption, the huge deficit in our budget, which, of course, repeatedly, the government justifies as taking out loans to plug the deficit and meet some of the responsibilities in terms of the service delivery to the citizens. If so, what is your take on that in light of the retreat in Chankwanzi?
I want to first, to some extent, disagree with my senior. And because I'm optimistic that from Chankwanzi there will be some reforms which will be made, because, like I said, President Museveni wants to play the anti-corruption card in the 2026 elections. So he wants to now be the champion in the anti-corruption fight in Uganda. So he will bring some semblance of change in service delivery, in the ways how his government can take service to the people, and I want to believe that some ministers may be dropped. He will make changes in his government, and again another casualty will be Parliament, which I think the House, which will also suffer from the after effects of the Chankwanzi retreat, because if you can remember very well, before they went to Chankwanzi, President Museveni noted that he actually saw Parliament making a mistake in awarding themselves, in legislating to determine their own emoluments. But he decided to leave them to make a mistake so that they can learn from the mistake. You saw that document. Yeah. Actually, he wrote that document in his address opening the Chankwanzi retreat. He said it, that he saw them make a mistake. So I believe that when they come back, some of the resolutions will be to have Parliament lose some powers in determining their emoluments and their privileges. The privileges of Parliament will be chopped. That's my projection. So Parliament will be one casualty, I hope, in the resolutions that will be made from Chankwanzi, not to make things better, but somehow for President Museveni to score a political mark. I don't know why people who have worked with President Museveni for a very long time do not learn his game plan.
They're just prisoners. They're just trapped.
President Museveni will always sacrifice you if he feels that's the way for him to continue his political, to continue holding power. So that's why I'm saying some people will be sacrificed for him to get that political score. And another thing I see from Chankwanzi possibly is also this, he has been talking about permanent secretaries and cows at district
Counting
level.
officers.
You may see most of them being sacked or actually arraigned in court on cases of corruption, and that would somehow give people hope that now President Museveni is serious about corruption, and he is going to do what to fight corruption. But like he said, I want to agree that the outcome of all this may not be the service delivery, bettering the service delivery they are talking about there. Service delivery will stay, will remain a big challenge, but as long as it takes him through 2026, then it will. I want to somehow also disagree with Honorable Ochieno on the venue for the retreat in Kyankwanzi. Leave alone the issue of putting on uniforms and what. But Kyankwanzi, as a national leadership institute, that only qualifies it as some place where these people can go and have a retreat. And
I think his key question is, why then, if that is the argument and justification, why is it not open for the other parties? Let's say UPC. Why can't UPC go and conduct a cadre training program at a national leadership institute like the Kyankwanzi?
That has been
why has it been patronized by?
That has been the debate and the biggest issue around Kyankwanzi.
In any case, if you don't mind, actually, bringing in White Horse Inn, I was being very deliberate to the Gen Z, that lest they forget that we ever had these facilities built for the people, and they've been
but
sold.
they are now private.
They've been sold off.
They are private.
And that Kyankwanzi, you're absolutely right. That no, other than that, of course, yes. There's no reason why it would not be a facility if it was a neutral.
If you're going to host more than 100 people in one place, and then you hire private services, then that would be also some form of extravagance that we have been which actually is one thing that I think the retreat would want to somehow send a message that they are cheering, that they are trying to cheer. So the choice of the venue somehow rhymes with the intention they want, or the impression they want to do what they want to put out.
Although it entrenches one thing, again, Kyankwanzi, again, lest other people forget, Kyankwanzi was started as an NRA cadre indoctrination center. In fact, before Museveni chased me to exile, he had suddenly created this nonsense that all public servants, all head teachers had to go through, and as I get that, they had to go through Kyankwanzi and NRA indoctrination. So this guy is disorganized this country. So heads of departments, head teachers needed to go to Kyankwanzi. So once upon a time, in order for you to join civil service, you had to go to Kyankwanzi, but not as a leadership institute, but to go through NRA indoctrination. In other words, you go through NRA initiation by accepting a part of NRA. And there are many people who refused to go because they saw it as an NRA thing and the independent public service. In fact, I know many people who were rounded seasoned civil servants. So take this time; it's very important. But they still say that we don't want to be part of this politicking and indoctrination. We're civil servants; they're not about associated political party, and they refused, and they lost their jobs. And at that particular time, if you're a young excited Ochieno in Makerere and you agreed to go, then it was a route to big things in NRA. But that's again another very important history. So Kyankwanzi has got some very terrible history, that's basically an NRA indoctrination center. But yes, a post-Museveni Uganda is a public space, a UPC government would review, would reorganize it and turn it into something useful, whether turn it into a hospital or build a university,
national public governance institute,
whatever institute, whatever.
But you see,
for the future. But anyway, sorry.
You see, Honorable, possibly what I would chip in as information to you is
no, I'm the one who took your time, so carry on.
As you ask for that opportunity to take your UPC fellows to Kyankwanzi, you should also call to review the curriculum in Chankwanzi. What is taught there?
Yeah.
What really is taught in Chankwanzi? Me, I look at it now as only a public venue where they can go and have facilities of accommodation, and only that. Because what is the curriculum at the National Institute? What is it?
Actually, can I tell you a small secret? Sorry. A friend of mine, who's a very senior friend of one of the national Kwangos, they went there as senior leaders for 2 weeks. And she tells me, there's a group of top lawyers, and she tells me that one of her very cheeky colleagues, this is about 10 years ago, one of her very cheeky colleagues in the group, who without prejudice is a Westerner, and my friend is also a Westerner, to make the point, but pushing this thing. This guy, the person teaching them, there's a group of lawyers, I don't want to open up the organization, was a soldier, a military general. And so I'm told that this guy cheekily decided to chip in some kind of mini challenge. I'm told that the guy was so furious. The guy was so furious. And on their way back, 3 colleagues said that if they were ever to be required to return to Chankwanzi, this is 10 years ago, that they would resign their positions. Meaning that it took that for these people to have their eyes opened up. And the general, at least the way he did it, would not help it. Meaning very well, you must know that this is the system here. And so it's a different topic, but it's also about Chankwanzi. So it's rather unfortunate that I can't but carry it. Sorry.
Yeah, I was saying that if you Honorable Ochieno is willing to take, is planning to take his fellows to Chankwanzi, they should first interest themselves in the curriculum and what is taught there, because every time
we need the venue, not because anyway.
So you're looking
just to clarify, I'm only the venue.
They love to devote their focus on Parliament. Now takes a short break. When we return, we have a discussion on the issue of the parliamentary session. See you back shortly.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back. This is the Focus on Parliament show on Civic Space TV. In this segment, we discuss the thoughts of the Ugandan citizens on the subject of the parliament recess. Let me start with you, Mr. Othieno. This is a very interesting subject, which I am certain a majority of the Ugandan citizen will have no understanding of what it is. They simply hear the speaker announce that Parliament is going into a recess period, but they never care to, designate what particular purpose or a justification for that. So I want to ask the question, should Ugandans be concerned about these breaks? Because as we know, they are standard practice, I think, in parliamentary, procedure and business world over. But here, let us bring it back to our context home. Should the Ugandan citizen be concerned about this practice?
Yes, because most and every aspect of Ugandan key institutions are in a mess, and Parliament is no exception. Parliamentary recess is just like parliamentary holidays, quite understandably. but to do it in such a manner that it's sort of at the whim of the speaker, and to do it sort of that it is so makes the entire thing so privileged, when you know the legislators are the most important voices of the people in the country, and to do so in such a manner that you can time it in a way in which recently it was done, almost sort of like to calm down a particular situation. You know, you guys go, and by the time you come back, maybe some storm would have gotten off, or you go, and by the time you go off, you know, when you're at your home, private home, then we can bribe you. Talk about bribes reminds me of the manner in which term limits and age limits, you know, legislators were literally bribed, and these were led by Mr. Museveni, and for Mr. Museveni's interest, so to corruption. So legislators being bribed, legislators being coerced, and legislators being silenced, and sometimes in many cases, legislators being pushed aside. Now, these things are done world over. In Britain, with the mother of global parliaments, the processes are very clear. And then and nor are they influenced by politics. And so you normally hear when time for recess comes, which is very definitively defined, you'll hear commentators, our fourth estate friends, you the fourth estate friends, saying that, look, you know, the government is so much under pressure that they will be relieved that the parliamentary recess is coming, and that recess will take away the matter, the focus of attention on government. Why? Because Parliament is really the real watchdog to what happens and takes place in government in democracies. In this case, it's not. In this case, Parliament is basically an instrument for the executive to do so and so as they wish. These are amongst the possible reforms that I personally would review in a future UPC government, that it is you know, regulated, organized in such a manner that it's much more clearly apparent, and it's not used and abused either by the speaker or the executive, or for that matter, maybe strategic parliamentarians and strategic groupings of the state against the interest of the citizenry. It is as bad in terms of recess, just as bad sometimes you recall in Parliament. So you call them at bay. Now, I've been told that sometimes they do these other things in order to create opportunities for legislators to make money. You know, what one other was done in order to avoid the fact that money was not forthcoming and there's not much money to be able to give these guys. I want to leave those details for him, kind of stuff. And you can't run a National Assembly like that, almost like either a mafia group or a betting organization somewhere down Kampala Road, which a UPC government would review because of its impact and influence on young people, or for that matter, some kind of dubious Maloa place where people scheme how to go ahead and disorganize the neighboring village. It's completely unacceptable. Now, the mother of Parliament was Britain. They had an election last week. One, the relativity of this Parliament. The Prime Minister called for a snap election on the will, on the power of theirs. Prime Minister in this case would be equivalent to the President of the country, you know, that being a monarch. The Prime Minister called elections at a time they knew they were going to lose after 14 years of now increasingly unpopular conservative government. But the issue then was, when are they more likely to lose less?
Oh.
You know? So he calls it at this time. And he calls it at this time because inflation figures had been released, and the inflation normally tend to be Office for Budget Responsibility. So it will be released, and the information will be very independent, you know, of being filed by a Minister of Mabati, something like that. You know, so the figures come, and this guy thinks that, well, it's an opportunity, we might not lose as many as we did, so we may get at least 150 rather than a terrible 120 seats from a majority. So he calls for elections, and snap elections in a short time. The short period of time that election campaign took place, I was privileged to have had the opportunity to be in Britain for a few parts of those weeks. I met some of these other people. You look through the country, and there is no war. It's business as usual. People carry on their businesses. But there's election campaigns going on. So I'm asking again, you ask about recess to Parliament, but I'm trying to respond in a broader polity. That I think we need to wake up and learn lessons that there are certain things that we're doing here which are terrible. Election time, life stops. You know, election time, life stops. It shouldn't be that. I met the now member of parliament for the area in which I lived, a friend. I mean, yeah, she's a friend, you know, area in which I live. And I met her myself and the chair of the local tenants and residents association. We were three. And we had chats and we had chats, and I gave her the bits that I needed to give her and whatever kind of stuff. But she was doing mini door-to-doors in particular estates. There's no qualms. She won the seat convincingly, an African woman. But number two, she is Miata Afanbule. She was a Sierra Leonean refugee. I'm telling Parliament, she was a Sierra Leonean refugee following the Sierra Leone conflict 20 years ago. At the time, I was a local government officer in London, and I contributed in part to part of the resettlement of some of these Sierra Leone refugees, but also participated in contributing through my then local member of parliament and the Blair government, for which I had a small say in the British government's intervention in Sierra Leone. So very important. But then the Sierra Leone refugee of 20 years ago is now a member of parliament, you know, in Britain. Tells you that in Uganda, when we discuss this identity questions, important fellow citizens, sometimes in some parliamentary elections, people lose votes from neighboring sub-countries because they don't come from there. People lose votes from neighboring clan predominantly because their aunties come from those places. Politics being reduced to personality, to clan, to bloodline, to nonsense, instead of the fundamental issues of what you call service deliveries, politics of issues, politics of ideology. The reason I'm extremely confident that UPC is the future of this country post Mr. Museveni is because we're the ideologically rounded and driven political party. But what are our ideological underpinnings? Our ideological underpinnings hit at the core of public services, of health, of education, of infrastructure, of agriculture, of unemployment, of the marginalized, of housing, you know, of infrastructure, of the environment, of young people, of women, you know. So if you pull those as social issues, you know, look at an election, I want to take election in France, you see what happens, we can discuss that briefly, we don't have time. Those are qualities of issues. When we do that, the guys who go to this parliament, you go for a recess, but you will not run. Because in as long as these very specific issues are not addressed in Bukedia, there's no way in which you're going to fudge the results anyhow. And if you come to parliament and your job is to take 50 million shillings in order to allow some funny guy to amend the constitution or some funny constitutional amendment to be made, you know, you will pay for it and pay for it bigly. And that's one of the reasons why I'm saying, yes, we talk parliamentary recess, but maybe one of the reasons, and for you, you're a fantastic presenter, but you're also a fantastic young man. I really hope that you and your colleagues and your groupings take this matter seriously, and you begin to advocate that beyond the Chankwanzi issue of next week, and beyond this politics of parliamentary recess at convenience, young people in this country should begin also to demand and say that whoever did not vote to impeach thieves in the National Assembly, to anybody who never stood in the floor of Parliament and denounced, you know, stealing of public resources, you're not coming back. So if you're a member of Parliament for Nagongara, you're not coming back because we're not going to vote for you. And yes, you're going to come back with that 1 billion stolen money, you know, to give to Nishat. We shall eat that money, we shall chew that money, but we shall not vote for you. So those are the things. But so that's what happened in Britain. But number two, you can see that for a 14-year period, there are 4 prime ministers, you know, conservative prime minister. But Britain did not fall. So Britain is one of the 5 global powers. It changed prime ministers 4 times. That government didn't fall. So who's telling me this average Uganda, you know, of Luwero, of Chankwanzi, that if somebody retires or resigns, that the country is going to stop the sun is going to stop to come from my great east. By them from the east, and the east is fantastic, you know, and fall onto the west is a pity, depends on where, but will pass by your century, don't worry. You know, so you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So, but Ugandans need to get this, and it's beautiful. 4 prime ministers But these guys were trying to manage, you see, responding to public opinion. You know, from David Cameron after losing the Brexit vote, he said, no, guys, I've failed on delivering this, you know. And remember, he's taking responsibility. But the voters beat him.
To May. Then Boris.
Then to Theresa May to try it. Then she fumbles with it, and then comes to Boris Johnson. Then Johnson fumbles with it, and Johnson got a bit high of it because he was seen to be the Mr. Brexit man, whatever kind of stuff. He goes and plays around with it, then turns to Liz Truss, and she was a disaster. And then after her, then this Sunak comes in to attempt to rescue the thing, and the thing was really sinking ship. But something also there, you know, is public opinion, because you young Ugandans get involved. Follow this young man on Twitter and follow what he says. You know, follow what he says and follow this conversation. Interest yourselves with these things. You know, after 14 years, the British citizens changed opinion from giving a conservative majority to a Labour majority, a huge Labour majority. And what are they saying? Look, we've tried with you, because in this thing you can go for parliamentary recess, but in as long as Loboa is sunk, you come back and Loboa is still a problem. So you, the voters, should say, you can have your recess whichever way you want, but in as long as there are no drugs in Agunga, we're not giving you votes. And we're going to punish it. And by then, the longer you leave it, the worse it will be. Meaning that we're going to humiliate you even more. So when it happens like that, people will respond. So those changes happen. And then quickly, in those particular ones, you know, elections take place. Polling closes in the evening, yeah? And immediately polling closes, the next thing, bang, exit polls. That is all the organization. Trend. And it's clear, because no dubious gunman has stolen and has taunted people, you know? By 2 o'clock in the morning, you confirmed elections. The following morning, the leader comes out in front of State House, whether it's in Nakasero or in Entebbe, or in case it found you voting in Rwachitura, say, fellow citizens, you know, I have heard from you, and I'm now going and I'm handing over from you know? And by afternoon, you've got a new leader, another commitment from UPC. In the event that we're in government, we're going to review this constitutional thing, that, well, once election takes place, there's no nonsense about
this. You want a transfer power to be immediate?
Transfer power to be immediate. It can take place over a day or whatever, but this 6-month thing is neither here nor there. These guys did it as an entitlement because they didn't foresee that, well, other political parties. So imagine, under Mr. Museveni, it takes 6 months, man, you know, all the Mabatis in Kampala will be, you know, I don't know wherever, they'll all be, you know what I'm trying to say? They'll be, you know what I'm trying to say? So we can't guarantee that our monies will be in our central banks. But these are important food for those of Ugandans. But these are fundamental reviews that, including parliamentarians, should consider. So that happens. So those changes happen. And then, of course, I told you much earlier, I don't know whether I said it on air, that the youngest member of parliament is 22. But finally, I want to say this, that the mother of the house, current mother of the house in Britain, is an African woman, meaning an African Caribbean woman who's an African buyer, those terrible slave trade. A friend of mine, Diane Abbott, she's the mother of the house, meaning she's the longest serving female member of parliament. She replaces my former member of parliament and a friend, Harriet Herman, who is replaced by this African woman. One, you see the diversity, but you see the possibilities, and you guys, you see the possibilities and the beauty of democracy. But in conclusion, that 22-year-old young comrade Carling in Cambridge, there is absolutely a guarantee I can give you that he did not have £5,000 in his pocket for election campaign. He didn't. He almost possibly did not use over £2,000 of his own money. The reason is you actually don't need to use any of your money, predominantly. The campaign is done through your parliamentary party, generally, and then, of course, the National Party giving you some little money, and then donors come and friends and people chip in, and then you organize fundraising. You do. But in part, because there's not a lot of money. People are looking at issues of the represented by the political party that you represent. Guys, let's demonetize politics. Demonetizing politics will make people who go to parliament stop being tempted to steal, like some of them are now thieves. demonetizing politics means that our legislators go down there to legislate to change your lives, you young Ugandans, rather than to think of how to bring back the little that they either stole or they borrowed from, some cases, dubious friends. And also, it means that when you do it on issues, you don't do the research because you want to please somebody in Chankwazi. Your mandate came directly from the people. I have a Karamojong person, sorry to go on a bit. I have a Karamojong person whom I'm told during the Mabate thing, a Karamojong legislator, but I said on this program, was told that you make the noise and then we shall field the candidate against you at the next election. So this is blackmail by this crude regime, you know. So who's paying the price there? It's not that legislator. It's the majority of the Karamojong people whose public monies, our money, have been stolen by a privileged lot of people. So these things need to change. So recess or no recess? Anyway, the different other bit of question my friend here is going to be given. We need a lot of work to do to turn around our country. But you know, democracy is absolutely sweet. I tested it under Obote 2 government. I tested it a little bit of under Obote 1 as I was mini growing. I lived in exile by Museveni in Britain. Democracy is a very sweet thing. And I'm lucky I've traveled around the world a bit. No, democracy is sweet. Young Ugandans, you're being denied democracy. Wake up. Don't just see what young Kenyans can do. You stand up and simply say no, and then the government falls. You know, it is possible. You guys just believe it better.
Thank you, Mr. Othieno. Apollo,
Yeah.
let us examine the concept of parliament recess in a sense that it is emerging that it's now, especially in our context here, it is the subject of abuse. The powers that be arbitrarily abuse the privilege of recess. Mr. Othieno here has correctly pointed out when there is a controversial subject to be debated and considered by the whole House, that is when they decide to bring the element of recess forth. So the question is, as a Ugandan citizen, are you really satisfied with the way the parliament has been able to schedule the recesses? Because, for example, in Britain, I understand, they have some sort of standard template for it.
Yeah, there is, yes.
Easter holiday, Christmas holiday.
And they know it, yes.
Then towards the opening of a new parliamentary
yes,
term,
yes.
and so forth. But here, it's really arbitrarily how it is scheduled. Your thoughts on that?
I appreciate Senior Honorable Ochieno. But the biggest mistake he has committed is comparing Uganda's democracy with the British democracy.
No, we don't have a democracy, so I didn't make a comparison of a democracy. I told you what democracy is.
He's trying to compare what is happening in Britain to what is happening in Uganda. But I'm not just a journalist. I'm a keen follower of politics, and for some time, and I have been in Parliament now for more than 7 years, reporting from Parliament. It's not true that that recess in our context of Parliament is just arbitrary. The call for recess. Recess is also on the calendar
on
of Parliament. Yeah, at times. But usually, there are those times when recess is just called. Is just like this one, this particular one. It wasn't on the parliamentary calendar. It was just announced, and members of Parliament were sent into recess. Parliament was sent into recess, which actually is at times also legally, fitting in the parliamentary rules and procedures, because the Speaker of the House is the custodian of the rules. And I remember we have had incidents where a Parliament is sent to recess on a certain, on a specific issue. I remember, was it in the second session when they were sent to monitor Emyoga,
yes,
the progress of Emyoga. At times they actually sent to consult on a bill that is before Parliament. So in those incidents, it's not on the calendar, but it's always
informed
on the
by
calendar.
the circumstances.
The circumstances that play around that time. But like I said, this particular one has many questions around it. Some of them rotate around personal interests of some people. I can relate to what is happening, the censure motion that is happening in Parliament. You know very well that some people, some individuals do not want Sech Kuba and his group to get that list, that list ready to support the censure motion on the floor. So it is also it is also said that possibly some individuals would want to deny the petitioners to get the number of members of Parliament. You saw how Sech Kuba was also pleading that he should be given a vehicle to run through constituencies soliciting signatures. So he has no access now to members of Parliament. So that's one thing that is that could be behind the recess. But another thing is I have been informed that it is the retreat in Chankwanzi. It also somehow affected the parliamentary calendar, and they had to let ministers also, because ministers are also ex-officials in Parliament. They had to go and attend the Chankwanzi retreat. But the big issue here is what has been in public discourse. The recess comes at a time when the public is charged putting Parliament under scrutiny. Everyone is talking about Parliament, how they are spending, how they are counting, how they are. Now we have members of Parliament who are actually in prison. So you see the tension. Somehow, someone would want to keep Parliament somewhere, to give them a break and not keep them into the limelight here, where they are debating on issues. But while they are debating on issues, on national issues, then the Parliament is agitated, and you cannot also rule out the fact of what is happening in Kenya. The Parliament of Kenya was a target. It was the primary target for the protesters. So you can also think that at the time when the public is asking questions about Parliament spending and accountability, and the youth and the neighborhood are protesting possibly, and actually you know that there is another group that is planning a march to Parliament. So there are many things that are running around that possibly would one person would, or a group of people would say, no, let's get these members go to the constituencies. But going into recess is also something good for members of Parliament to go and do oversight on government projects in their areas, in their constituencies.
Do they?
Okay, that's another matter. Yeah, that's another matter. But again, as you send them to their constituencies, this time I have called few members of Parliament, and they are not happy. They are not happy about this recess. They are saying, like I said, that this has personal individual interests, because they were sent to the constituencies at a time when they don't have money. And like he said, in these commercialized politics, they need money when they are going to the constituencies. People will be waiting for them to beg for money. So you know that we have just crossed into a new financial year, and usually in July, members of Parliament get their money at the end of the month, as the new financial year rolls in. So some of those I talked to, they are saying, no, actually the person who sent us into recess did us a very bad thing, because the people want money, they don't have money, so they're actually yearning to come back. But I want to bring to attention one issue about recess also being another way of corruption. Because we need members of parliament, like at this time we would need members of parliament to be in the house raising these issues of corruption and accountability, but they are nowhere. You know that the discussion about corruption was blocked in parliament. Already now as we speak, we have people who have been put into prison because of speaking against corruption. So if you have members of parliament going to recess when there are these salient issues in the public, then you are doing us a disservice. We would want members of parliament to be there. Actually, I was looking at parliamentary business for this 11th parliament. In the first session of 2021-2022, they had only 105 sittings in the whole year. Honorable Ochieno, you can listen to this.
I am following, actually. And I'm going to refer to
105 sittings in the whole year. 265 days. Then in the second session, they had 107 sittings. Then in this session, in the just concluded session, the third session, they had only 87 sittings. I don't know if you get what I'm...
It's almost half.
You have members of parliament sitting only 87, having only 87 sittings in the whole year, when actually there is a lot. They always have unfinished business at the end of the calendar year for parliament. You get what I'm saying? So it's one form of cheating us Ugandans. They should be in parliament debating and looking at business that is every year in, year in out. There is business that is left over for the next session. So I think members of parliament should cut on this recess, these periods of recess, so that they should be in parliament, have much more time to attend to issues of the people. Even when government has not introduced business because it usually comes from government, the business they attend to. There are other issues from the constituencies. There are matters of national importance. There are those issues, they are private members' bill that can be presented around that time. There are very many pending, there are a lot of pending business they can attend to. Every time an order paper is released, it is not, the work is not done on that order paper for the day. There is always pending business, and I think it's one form of corruption if members of parliament are not sitting in that house and legislating on behalf of citizens.
Joseph, your closing remarks on the program respecting today's topic, both the components.
As wrapped up by my good friend here, we have a fudged process in this country. We do not have a democracy. And indeed, at no time did I ever attempt to compare Uganda and UK as a democracy. I attempted to sell the idea of the sweetness of democracy to you young Ugandans, but also to say that there has ever been a democracy in this country, notwithstanding what anybody else can say. We had a parliamentary democracy for which there was only one report of corruption, and that's Idi Amin's gold scandal in 1966. And that gold scandal involved Idi Amin, who had been sent to Congo by Milton Obote to support you and us in supporting Patrice Lumumba's liberation struggles against imperialists and exploitations of Congo. Amin exceeded his mandate and got involved in gold scandal. Government intervened, Parliament got involved, Parliament investigated and found, in fact, the allegation coming in from the opposition that Obote and Amin were. That is because it was not true. And then, of course, what was Parliament clear about and found, which was rightfully and found, wanting, and what was preparing to to arrest Idi Amin. One of the reasons why I had the coup, but because Amin's friends, Israelis, told him that, look, Obama is going to arrest you, but we can help you stop him. Something like that's a different story. So, one, throughout Obote II Parliament, I was trying to tell you the fantastic nature of the Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Francis Botajira, and I think when he sees these things on television, the poor old man feels very sad.
Or rather nostalgic.
I do not know. There's no reason for him. For us, UPC guys were very settled, and particularly the elder guys. No, we're looking to the future. We're just concerned about our children and children's children. We are not people who are driven by grab, and like my good friend Sarah Bireta says, people like who behave like monkeys chasing bananas. So the answer, in brief, is that young Ugandans need to wake up. Ugandans need to wake up. Ugandans need to begin taking responsibility. Ugandans need to begin comparing themselves with Britain. Because when it's convenient, we say racism. When it's convenient, we want to put on British suits. When it's convenient, we want to run with their iPhones. So we cannot say we run with their iPhones and we do their suits and their jackets and everything else, and we listen to them and drive their cars. And we also don't want their freedom. But in many cases, we say that, oh, these people think we are less human. So what is special about Britain? What is special about an average British person? No, but what is special? Indeed, it's related to the system. What is special about a young average Kenyan? Why should South Africa, that we're fighting for the other day, why should they have a democracy and why not Uganda? But finally, in Uganda, we ever had a democracy post-independence and parliament and the government that functioned. In Obote II, as Museveni was busy breaking people's necks in Luwero, we had a functioning parliamentary system for which there would be no scintilla of scandal, and as a parliament reporter here, you'll go back and go through Hansen. There is no incident with some of these things. It would be like another world. So it happened just in the government, Obote II government, just the other day. So there's no reason why we don't have better today. Finally, therefore, I think while young Ugandans wake up, my commitment as a future UPC government, one of the things we'll do will be to review not only number of positions in terms of reviewing size of government, which is a very, very big corruption thing, maybe reduce it by half. I would reduce the role, the districts. I would reduce the size of government generally. I would reduce the size of parliament. I would review the position of specially elected people, in the assemblies. There's a workers' representative, I don't know who represents them. There's a teachers' representative, I don't know who represents them. There's a soldiers' representative, I don't know what their jobs are, in parliament. And they're eating a huge amount of money for nothing. In fact, they're allegedly youth representatives, and I know a few, but I've never heard them discuss youth issues in parliament. Nor have I ever seen them working with the young people saying that we are demanding for jobs. And as your legislator, I'm going to open for you my parliamentary office. What is it? All these things need to urgently be reviewed because part of the end patronage corruption. What would happen also, therefore, with the legislators is that urgently we need to review how these guys are remunerated, dealing therefore with this. Do we give these people round of figure money? Do we create situations in which you have a flat salary of 12 million Uganda shillings? That's a lot of money, 12 million Uganda shillings instead of 36 plus a huge amount of unnecessary allowances? Or should we decide to give you a round of figure of 6 million shillings? That's also still a lot of money. Some of these people in parliament, some of them had never earned 300,000 shillings. Some of these people had never earned 500,000 shillings. Average young lawyers like yourselves start with 600,000 shillings. So if some of these guys get 1.5 million shillings a month, man, that's a privilege. In any case, they go to those assemblies to serve. Legislators not as a business. And so therefore, maybe in the absence of that, we should say that we should begin giving these guys a certain fee of 2 million Uganda shillings, because to put on once in a while also a suit in order to compete with themselves in smartness. And then you begin to have allowances per city. Maybe it might address some of these things. Or for some people coming to parliament and then they spend 6 years and nobody even knows who they represent. I sat in a public event somewhere with a senior NRA person in the top front, can you imagine? But here is some very senior NRA member of parliament coming to introduce himself to this senior NRA person. And this person has been a member of parliament, I think 3 or 4 times. I don't want to go too much detail, the person might see. Tells you. So what is that bad guy's role? No, these people are telling people lies down there. They're eating our money in the villages and they're eating our money in Kampala. And then finally, what members of parliament's jobs are not is to inspect projects.
Monitor.
That's not their jobs. Not monitor. It's absolutely not. Possibly not even to test a lead public opinion on behalf of government. That's not their job. They should do it through their respective political parties and through their whips when they go to their branch meetings or constituency meetings at home. A member of parliament's job, when I have issues in Nagongera, I write to my member of parliament or I go to his or her surgery. They raise these matters with the relevant government authorities, if it's the ministry of the departments, and then, or if the police, they write to police chief, or if it's something at the district education officer, and they get replies. That's what members of parliament do. And that's what there is a representation of. And then after that, the minister answers, oh yes, I received from Honorable Isaac Buembo, of Masaka Central, and it was ABCD whatever, and we've checked and government is doing ABCD, and I will check with my department and I'll come back to you, or whatever that hospital thing is, ABCD. That's all. Now tell me that what I'm telling you is not what should be known by citizens of Uganda, and it's no comparison, because it never happened in this country. That is the democracy that we should be fighting for, and that's the democracy of the future. But it will not be a future. You will not get it under Mr. Museveni.
Thank you, Joseph, for your perspectives on the program. Apple, your closing remarks.
I can also re-echo his statement. Recess or no recess, Ugandans want to see things change for the better. They would want to see services flow. They want to see corruption wiped out or stamped out, like you said. But there is a complete mismatch in what is in Chankwanzi and what is happening here in Kampala. As the president is emphasizing a fight on corruption, then people who are speaking about corruption are being taken into prison. That's a complete mismatch. And I think members of parliament, you cannot hide from this. You should be the ones who should be raising these issues on the floor of parliament instead of running away from it. I saw the other day some people had come to parliament to protest that Honorable Sech Kubo is missing from their, he's not attending to their issues in the constituency while others are there. But he's doing, he's doing a constitutional duty. He's soliciting signatures to table a motion about an important issue that is happening in this country. From my intel, these are the people who have been sponsored, stage managed to come and frustrate a process that is going on. So you see how our country, we are in a big problem. We have leaders who are talking this and others who are talking this. So we have no common issue that brings us together. We should be speaking about the wastage in government offices and departments. We should be talking about how we can plug the gaps that drain our smaller budget. We should be talking about how we can fund our 72 trillion imaginary budget when we are actually going to collect very little money. How are we going to fund this budget? How will we have the money ready to attend to the needs of the people when we have another big chunk of the money going to pay the debts? Those are the issues which the members of parliament should be talking about instead of running and hiding away because there is a censure motion going on in parliament. So I think our parliament, it's very, it's a shame trying to compare it with the British Parliament, because it's a shame, like he said. The other one, the Parliament, like he said in UK, when it goes into recess, then the executive is relieved that now we are relieved of the pressure. But here it is Parliament that does what? that actually
The donkey work for the
does the
executive.
don't work for the executive. It's a complete it's a quagmire we find ourselves in. So it's upon and our constitution is really is also not favoring us. It is again the reforms we are calling for are also affected by the same parliament we are now that is under scrutiny right now. If we talk about now laws that can stringent laws that can put the corrupt on the guillotine, it must be through parliament to introduce those laws. Now, it is the same parliament that has really betrayed Ugandans, and it is the same that has the role to correct the mistakes. So it is a real problem we're in. But I have to tell our fellow Ugandans that we still have hope. I still hope that even from Chankwanzi, like I said, some ministers who went to Chankwanzi as ministers may lose their positions in just 2 months from now. But again, we wait to see how that can actually translate into better service delivery, which is the theme of the Chankwanzi retreat. We thank you so much.
Thank you, Apollo, for sharing your thoughts on the program. Once again, I want to appreciate you, Mr. Othieno, Joseph, and Tusiime, Apollo, for your able participation on the program, respecting the topic of discussion for the day. And to our esteemed viewers, we appreciate you for keeping us company from the start of this program up to its conclusion. Much appreciation to the production unit for keeping us live on air. Please engage us on our various social media platforms. We are on X, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can also watch this program. We'll see you next time. Be blessed.